Recently, my husband has been talking about taking out a life insurance policy. I am in favor of this as we have a baby and he is pursuing a career as a pilot. This weekend, he walked into our bedroom and said that he had researched a policy he'd like to get for $3 million. He then says, I think I'll set it up so half is for you and half for my mom. I am American, he is Cuban, his mother and the rest of his family currently live in Latin America. They do okay for themselves, but the standard of living is a bit different from the United States, though not crazy. She's not happy there, and we've been trying to sponsor her to come to the United States. I like his mom, and we have supported her in many ways, such as paying for multiple trips to Cuba, paying to send suitcases, parcels with clothes/shoes to them, cash gifts when we visit, etc. When he says this about splitting the life insurance policy, something in my gut felt weird. I think it showed on my face because he asked me, and I said that it seemed odd to me, that it seemed like these kinds of legal, financial things should be set up for our small family, and that I would not just leave his family hanging if anything were to happen. He was defensive, asking why I didn't want his mom to get anything. I wasn't saying that, but I didn't really have words to explain what I was feeling. I was clear that, of course, I would want his mom to receive funds if something so tragic happened, but that it seemed like legally this policy should be set up for me and our kid, plus future kids. Round and round we went. My logic, say he passes away in an accident in 20 years. We have 3 kids. His mom is still alive and pushing 80. $1.5 million is excessive for someone of her age and lifestyle. For this example, it gets split evenly between the 3 kids. A lot of money, but obviously you can't do as much with $500K as you can with $1.5 million. I think it's logical to say that the cost of life and living for an elderly woman versus for a young family of 4 is very different, and that different quantities of money should be allocated because of this. Also, I want to be part of this decision. Him waltzing in and telling me what he's going to do doesn't fly with me, especially as we are equal earners in our home and share finances. So I am paying for half of this policy. His logic, I should think of it as 2 separate policies. 1.5 for his family, 1.5 for me and our kids, that our kids will get $500K, which is a lot of money. That $500K is better than nothing, and isn't it good enough that he's thinking of us and setting us up for a good life? He continuously accuses me of not wanting his mom to get any money. He also called me selfish, implying that I just wanted more money for myself. He says of course his mom would share this money with the rest of his family, dad, sister, and nephews. I don't have great words for how I feel. It just doesn't feel normal to me. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I am not going to give a verdict here. As a Latin American from the sister island, you guys have cultural differences you need to talk out. You see, usually it's the norm for children to take care of their parents. And it's also quite normal for the more successful child to help his/her siblings. How it usually goes is that parents will not give all their kids even help, but will do as much as possible for their best achiever. Sometimes siblings will help financially, so there is a big chance that the only reason your husband was able to do a degree or even get to the USA was thanks to his family in general. For example, my mom helped my aunt get out of the island. Now she has a good job and a couple of apartments. She has told my mom there is an apartment available for her when she retires. Another sibling pays her plane tickets, etc. I think you need to talk to your husband about his life in Cuba. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Typically, a life insurance policy is intended to cover the losses associated with someone's death. That includes costs of burial, etc., but also the lost income of the person dying. Your first step should be to calculate the financial impact of your husband dying. How much money would he earn over the remainder of his career? How would the loss of that income impact your ability to pay the mortgage or your kids' ability to go to college? That should be how you think about life insurance for your family. It's not unreasonable to consider that your husband won't be able to contribute as much to his family, but he's treating this more like buying lottery tickets for her every month. And it's reasonable to not want to put that in the family budget. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So after that heated discussion about the life insurance policy, things have only gotten more complicated. The next day, my husband and I barely spoke. I could tell he was still upset, and honestly, I was too. I spent most of the day thinking about how to approach the topic again without it turning into another argument. That evening, I decided to bring it up once more, but this time, I wanted to be more prepared. I had done some research on life insurance policies and how they are typically structured for families. I found that it's common for the primary beneficiary to be the spouse and children, with a smaller portion allocated to other family members if necessary. When I presented this information to him, he seemed to listen more intently. I explained that my concern wasn't about his mom getting money, but about ensuring that our immediate family's future was secure. I suggested that we could set up a smaller, separate policy for his mom, which would still provide her with financial support without taking away from our children's future. He seemed to consider this, but then he dropped a news. He told me that his mom had been struggling more than we knew. Apparently, she had been hiding her financial difficulties from us out of pride. She had recently lost her job and was having trouble making ends meet. This was a huge revelation, and it made me feel guilty for not being more understanding. However, it also made me more determined to find a solution that worked for everyone. The following day, I suggested we talk to a financial advisor. I thought a neutral third party could help us navigate this tricky situation. My husband agreed, and we set up an appointment for the next day. The advisor was incredibly helpful. She explained the different options we had and helped us see the bigger picture. She suggested a tiered approach where the primary policy would be for our family and a smaller secondary policy could be set up for his mom. This way, everyone would be taken care of. My husband seemed to be on board with this plan, but then he mentioned something that threw me off. He said that his sister had also been struggling and that he wanted to include her in the policy as well. This was starting to feel overwhelming. I understood his desire to help his family, but I felt like our priorities were getting muddled. I told him that while I sympathized with his sister's situation, our primary responsibility was to our children. This led to another argument. He accused me of being heartless and not caring about his family. I tried to explain that it wasn't about not caring, but about making sure our children's future was secure. He stormed out of the house and I was left feeling frustrated and helpless. The next day he came back and apologized. He said he understood where I was coming from, but he still felt torn between his responsibilities to his family and to us. We decided to take a break from discussing the policy and focus on spending time together as a family. We took our baby to the park and tried to enjoy the day, but the tension was still there. That evening, we received a call from his mom. She had found out about our discussions and wanted to reassure us that she didn't need the money. She said she appreciated our concern, but didn't want to be a burden. This was a relief, but it also made me feel even more guilty. I realized that my husband's desire to help his family was coming from a place of love and responsibility, and I needed to respect that. We decided to revisit the financial advisor and discuss the tiered approach again. This time, we included his mom in the conversation via video call. She was very understanding and supportive of the plan. We agreed to set up a smaller policy for her and focus the primary policy on our family. This seemed to be a good compromise, and it felt like we were finally on the same page. However, just when I thought things were settling down, my husband dropped another bomb. He told me that he had been offered a job as a pilot in another state. This was a huge opportunity for him, but it would mean uprooting our family and moving away from our support system. I was torn. On one hand, I wanted to support his career, but on the other hand, I didn't want to leave our home and the life we had built here. We spent the next few days discussing the pros and cons of the move. It was a tough decision, but ultimately, we decided to take the leap. We agreed that it was a great opportunity for him and that we could make it work as a family. We started making plans for the move and began looking for a new home in the new state. As we prepared for the move, I couldn't help but think about how much our lives had changed in such a short time. The life insurance policy, the financial struggles of his family, and now the move. It felt like everything was happening at once, but I was determined to stay positive and make the best of it. Looking back, I realized that this whole experience had brought us closer together. We had faced some tough challenges, but we had come out stronger on the other side. I was proud of how we had handled everything and felt more confident in our ability to face whatever came our way in the future. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to share my snacks with my spoiled sister and locking my door to keep her out? I'm a 17-year-old male, the second youngest in my family. I have two sisters and a brother, Jesse, 23-year-old female, Caden, 21-year-old male, and Luna, 14-year-old female. This post is about Luna. We're the only two siblings still living at home, and our parents provide us with food and other things. However, my parents aren't big on chocolate or candies, so they never buy them. We can buy our own with our own money once we're old enough to earn some, which is what I do. My parents also have a very bland palate. They don't like curries or stir fries with sauce. They don't do anything spicy at all, not even a touch of spice. But I love those things. So sometimes I buy stuff to make those things and make curry for myself, or I'll make spicy chicken. So on to Luna. She's the baby of the family, and our parents spoiled her way more than the rest of us. They let her get away with being a brat to people, and she's not someone I like being around, and neither do our older siblings. She always wants to tell us what to do, and she demands things. One time my parents were away at a wedding, and Jesse and Caden came home to babysit, which was just my parents saying they could stay at the house and eat for free because they paid for it and make sure Luna and I were okay. This was last year, and Luna screamed so loud the neighbor came out to see if we were okay. And it was all because she wanted pizza while we wanted ramen. Luna said we couldn't have ramen and we all needed to get pizza. She tried taking the money out of Jesse's hand. She tried to break Jesse and Caden's phones. She even screamed at the neighbor that we wouldn't let her get pizza. Caden found a frozen pizza, and Luna screamed more that it wasn't what she wanted. Another time, Caden was home from college, and she demanded he take her to her friend's house because mom and dad weren't home. She pulled him out of bed. She threatened to break his laptop. Everything. She's always telling me to do stuff for her and screaming when I say no. So I never buy her anything from what I earn because I honestly don't feel like she deserves it. Lately, she's been getting so jealous of the food I buy myself, and she told me to save some for her. I told her no. She told me I can't tell her no, and I said I can, and I did, and I'll do it again. She screamed into my face and demanded I give her some of my food. I said no. She has food in the fridge. She ran and told our parents, and like they always do, they backed her and told me I should be willing to share. I told them I would share when she treats me better and gets a way better attitude. My parents and Luna are pissed. Luna called me a jerk, and my parents said I wasn't being generous like they taught me to be. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You should tell your parents that if they taught female Dudley to be less demanding and wholly unreasonable, then you could be more generous. If 3 out of 3 siblings find their daughter intolerable, what is that saying about that kid? They need a reality check, and I forbid you to share with her until you genuinely want to do so. Not the idiot. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Luna needs to learn that yelling doesn't always get her whatever she wants. Otherwise, she's going to have a rude awakening someday. My parents said I wasn't being generous like they taught me to be, yet they taught Luna it's okay to yell at people and threaten to break their stuff? Yikes. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post. So things have been pretty intense since then. After the whole food sharing argument, Luna decided to take matters into her own hands. She started sneaking into my room and taking my snacks and other food items when I wasn't around. I caught her red-handed one evening when I came back from a run. She was sitting on my bed, munching on my chocolate. I was furious and told her to get out. She just smirked and said, "What are you gonna do about it?" I was so mad, but I didn't want to escalate things, so I just told her to leave and took my chocolate back. The next day, I decided to put a lock on my door. I bought a simple padlock and installed it myself. When Luna saw it, she threw a fit. She banged on my door, screaming that it was unfair and that I was being mean. My parents got involved again, and they were not happy about the lock. They said it was unnecessary and that I should trust my sister. I told them that trust goes both ways and that Luna had broken mine by stealing from me. They didn't have much to say to that, but they still weren't pleased. Later that evening, I overheard my parents talking about how they were worried about Luna's behavior. They mentioned that she had been acting out more at school and that they were considering taking her to a therapist. This was news to me, and it made me wonder if there was more going on with Luna than just her being spoiled. I decided to keep an eye on her and see if I could figure out what was really bothering her. The following day, I noticed Luna was unusually quiet. She didn't demand anything from me, and she didn't throw any tantrums. It was strange, but I didn't want to jinx it, so I just went about my day. That evening, I made myself a spicy chicken stir-fry. Luna came into the kitchen and just watched me cook. She didn't say anything, but I could tell she was interested. I decided to offer her a small plate just to see how she would react. To my surprise, she accepted it without any fuss. She even said thank you, which was a first. Over the next couple of days, Luna's behavior continued to improve. She wasn't as demanding, and she even started helping out around the house a bit. I was cautiously optimistic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I decided to talk to Jesse and Caden about it. They both agreed that Luna's sudden change in behavior was suspicious, but they didn't have any answers either. Then on the third day, things took a turn. I came home from school to find Luna crying in her room. I knocked on her door and asked if she was okay. She didn't respond, so I let myself in. She was sitting on her bed, hugging her knees and sobbing. I sat down next to her and asked her what was wrong. She hesitated for a moment before finally opening up. She told me that she felt like nobody in the family liked her and that she was always being compared to the rest of us. She said she felt like she could never measure up and that it made her angry and frustrated. I was taken aback by her honesty. I had never seen this side of Luna before. I told her that we all loved her, but that her behavior made it hard for us to show it. I explained that she needed to work on treating people with respect and that we would be more willing to spend time with her if she did. She nodded and said she would try. The next day, Luna apologized to me for taking my food and for being a brat. She also apologized to Jesse and Caden over the phone. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. My parents were thrilled to see Luna making an effort to change, and they even apologized to me for not handling things better. As for me, I decided to give Luna another chance. I started sharing my food with her and even taught her how to make some of my favorite dishes. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when Luna's old habits resurfaced. But overall, things were improving. One evening, while we were cooking together, Luna asked me why I like spicy food so much. I told her about how I had discovered my love for it when I was younger and how it made me feel adventurous and alive. She listened intently and then shared a story of her own. She told me about a time when she was little and had tried to make a cake for our mom's birthday. It had turned out horribly, and she had been so embarrassed that she never tried baking again. I realized that a lot of Luna's behavior stemmed from a fear of failure and a need for validation. As we continued to cook and talk, I felt a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to change for the better. But I'll get to that in a bit. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to share a room with my dad's new wife's clingy kid and choosing to live with my mom? Instead, my parents divorced when I was 4. My memory of them together is really fuzzy, and what is normal to me is mom's house, dad's house. Mom's house always felt more like home to me, though. But we live with my grandparents, so maybe that's why, and I always loved living with my grandparents. I'm really close to them. I never hated going to my dad's house, though, and we were close until the Infection 19 stuff happened. My dad introduced me to his girlfriend in December 2020, and they got married in May 2021. She has 3 kids. Her oldest is 10 years old, her middle kid is 7 years old, and her youngest is 5 years old. The youngest is a boy and the other 2 are girls. When we all moved in together, the oldest and I got our own rooms, and the younger 2 shared. A few months ago, my dad and his wife were really annoyed because the 7-year-old hates sharing with the 5-year-old. They don't get along at all, neither do the girls, and the 7-year-old doesn't like how clingy the 5-year-old is, and he really is clingy. He gets nightmares and wants to share a bed and all kinds of stuff, but not with the adults, with his sister. But he also asked me a few times, because the girls don't get along, and because the 10-year-old is a girl who is at an age where sharing with a brother might be awkward, my dad told me he wanted me and his stepson to share, and he laid out the expectation that I be there for my stepbrother for nightmares and stuff, and to really invest in being a good brother because he's far more affectionate and longing for closeness that neither of his sisters give him. I told Dad I wasn't okay with any of that, and I didn't want to share a room with his stepson and be responsible for a closeness I don't want He told me I had no choice and that I should want closeness because we're family and I have the chance to have a brother. The rest of that week, he was in my former room and he tried climbing into my bed every night, and he would wake up once I went to bed, a really light sleeper, and would chat my ear off. 2 years ago, I was given the choice to stay at either parent's house more permanently, and with the changes at Dad's, I decided to stay with my mom and not go to my dad's for parenting time anymore. Dad didn't like it, but he thought I'd come back around. I still haven't been there since. Now for an update. My dad's wife is furious because her son hates being on his own in the room all the time. She berated me really bad for that, and Mom told her to never contact me again when she heard it. My dad told me I need to stop acting like this, and I come across as very entitled and selfish. Am I the jerk? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. A 15-year-old and 5-year-old sharing a room is a nightmare. Where are you supposed to study? What about the difference in bedtime and content maturity? Not the idiot. I see why the situation is difficult. But this wouldn't be a solution, but simply a new set of problems. Is a 10-year-old too old to share a room due to puberty and stuff? Is a 15-year-old boy fine? Comment 2. Not the idiot. I'm not surprised the 7-year-old hates sharing with the 5-year-old if he behaves like that. Expecting you to parent your stepbrother is 100% not fair. Your dad's wife is furious because she can't get free babysitting from you. I'm really glad your mother has your back on this, and sorry that your dad is not seeing your point of view. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So 2 weeks ago, things took a turn for the worse. It all started when my dad's wife, let's call her stepmom, decided to escalate the situation. She was already mad about her son being alone, but she took it to a whole new level. She called a family meeting, which included my dad, her, and her kids. I wasn't there, but I heard about it later from my dad. She basically laid out how my refusal to share a room with her son was tearing the family apart. She even suggested that my dad should take legal action to force me to spend time at their house. My dad didn't agree with her, but he didn't exactly stand up for me either. He just sat there looking uncomfortable. After the meeting, my dad called me and told me about what happened. He said he didn't want to take legal action, but that I needed to step up and be a part of the family. I told him that I wasn't going to be forced into a situation that made me uncomfortable. He got really quiet and then said, "Well, if you don't come back, you're going to make things really hard for everyone here." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how unfair it was for my dad to put me in this position. I felt like I was being punished for wanting my own space and for not wanting to be a surrogate parent to my stepbrother. I talked to my mom about it, and she was furious. She said that if my dad tried to take legal action, she would fight it with everything she had. A few days later, my dad's wife sent me a long, angry email. She accused me of being selfish and said that I was ruining her son's life. She even went as far as to say that I was the reason her marriage was struggling. I didn't respond, but I showed the email to my mom. She was livid and said she would handle it. She called my dad and told him that his wife needed to back off or there would be serious consequences. The next day, my dad called me again. He sounded really tired and defeated. He said that his wife was making his life miserable and that he didn't know what to do. He asked me if I could just come over for a weekend to see if things could get better. I told him I would think about it. I spent the next few days thinking about what to do. I didn't want to go back to my dad's house, but I also didn't want to make things harder for him. I decided to talk to my grandparents about it. They have always been my rock, and I needed their advice. My grandpa told me that I needed to do what was best for me, and that I shouldn't let anyone guilt me into doing something I didn't want to do. My grandma said that family is important, but so is my mental health. After talking to them, I decided to go to my dad's house for the weekend. I figured I could at least try to make things better. When I got there, things were really tense. My dad's wife barely spoke to me, and my stepbrother was clingier than ever. The first night, he tried to climb into my bed again. I gently told him that he needed to sleep in his own bed. He started crying, and my dad's wife came in and yelled at me for making him upset. I felt like I couldn't win. The next day, I decided to take my stepbrother out for a walk. I thought maybe if we spent some time together, he would feel more comfortable sleeping in his own bed. We walked to a nearby park, and he started talking about how he missed his old house and his old friends. He said he felt like no one wanted him around. I felt really bad for him. I realized that he was just a little kid who was struggling with a lot of changes. When we got back to the house, I talked to my dad. I told him about the conversation I had with my stepbrother and how I felt bad for him. My dad looked really sad and said that he didn't know how to make things better. I suggested that maybe they could look into getting some help for my stepbrother, like a therapist or a counselor. My dad agreed and said he would talk to his wife about it. That night, my dad's wife apologized to me. She said that she was just really stressed out and that she didn't mean to take it out on me. She said that she would look into getting some help for her son. I told her that I understood and that I just wanted everyone to be happy. The rest of the weekend was still a little tense, but it was better. My stepbrother slept in his own bed, and my dad's wife was a little nicer to me. When I left, my dad hugged me and said that he was proud of me for trying to make things better. Since then, things have been a little better. My dad's wife found a therapist for her son, and he seems to be doing a little better. My dad and I are talking more, and he seems to understand that I need my own space. I'm still living with my mom and my grandparents, but I feel like things are starting to get better. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.